Welcome, friends, to a very special episode of the Shenanigoons podcast. This week, Jose exploded, Josie exploded, and it is only me. Only Lonesome John. But with that said, this week I just kind of wanted to continue the content mill, get everything going, but I also kind of wanted to just talk about a very specific video game. There's no real point, reason. There's nothing to watch because I can't discuss what I've been watching. But this video game, it has a special place in my heart. The video game in question is called Paradise Killer. It was developed by Kaizen Gameworks and uses the Unreal Engine. That said, it's not remotely an action game by any stretch. It's kind of a detective visual novel, free roam. It's very interesting, and the aesthetics are wonderful. I'll get into that a little bit later, but as far as where you can play it, should this end up interesting you, it's available basically on any modern hardware. It's like you have the Nintendo Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, I think from 4 onward, and then just regular Xbox One onward, and of course, PC. It was released back in 2020, so it was kind of a perfect time for it to come out, and at that particular point, it was really just on the PC and Nintendo Switch. Back in 2021, that's when, of course, you got a little bit more of an expanded release to like the Asia territories. And then in 2022, that's when it finally came out on Xbox and PlayStation, and when I finally had the chance to play this game. Effectively, what this game is you have your character, Lady Love Dies. She is an investigator. She is called the investigation freak by all the other characters, both in kind of a endearing and as a pointed jab that's all she cares about, is like digging deeper and deeper into things. But she has been exiled due to a demon corrupting influence on her at one of the previous cycles by the Syndicate. The Syndicate is the overarching organization that everybody on the island belongs to in this wonderful paradise. With the Syndicate being murdered, the judge calls for her to be brought back from exile. So she welcomes that chance, comes down, and starts to investigate like the investigation freak that she is. Some of the star players in this, or I'll just kind of go over the cast itself. It's like you have Henry Division. He is the prime suspect in all of this. He's a demon-possessed, islander, so not one of the Syndicate, but he's a demon-possessed islander who has marks drawn into his body that are like the demonic sigils and such. So it's like he is very obviously under the control of a demon, and he has a lot of pain all the time. So he's more willing than most to get out there and do terrible things, because it's like he has that influence, but he also has that pain where he's not in the most logical state of mind. But he's the prime suspect, and he was under lock and key until the murders occurred, and then was quickly caught thereafter. So that puts into question, it's like, oh, did he get out, commit the murder, and then get literally blood drunk and then get taken back into custody? Some people will think so. Then you also have Dr. Doom Jazz. He's kind of a flirty character, kind of in a fun way, where it's like, you know that he's flirting with you because that's what he does. He also knows, pretty much everybody but Henry Division in this game has a connection to Lady Love Dies in some capacity or another. There is one character that does not. I will mention that when I get to him. But Dr. Doom Jazz, he has a bit of an alibi for the murders, and he's there kind of flirting, giving a little bit of info here and there, but he does have little things that make him a little sketchy and has a lot more going on under the surface as to why he might be upset with the syndicate or be sympathetic to those who are against the syndicate right under their nose. And that brings us to Carmelina Silence. She is the current architect for the next cycle. And I'll get into the cycle in a minute. But she's kind of like, oh, my family did terrible things in the past, but I'm above that. I know I can't get on to the syndicate because of that, but I know I can be the most useful and the best. So she takes whatever she can, or whatever she does and whatever she can to get in there and try to claw whatever power she can, but in kind of a very, oh, I'm just doing this for the betterment of all type of way. So because of her family's excommunication from the syndicate because of her father's actions, she does hold some animosity towards the syndicate, and she also has a couple other skeletons buried in her closet that we will come to. There's Crimson Acid. She was looked upon by one of the gods that the syndicate worships and bestowed a goat's head on her body. So she became kind of an idol for just not only the islanders, but also for the lower ranking syndicate members. She was a warrior, but now she trades in secrets. So she has a lot of dirt on a lot of people and a lot of why the syndicate might be, or a lot of information on why the syndicate might not be operating as it should be. So again, she has her motives. You have Witness to the End, and he is kind of a fanatic, but he's also kind of an interesting character. He comes from kind of ancient Persia, or it's a kind of turn of the century, I believe. No, turn of the millennia Persia area. And he was initially kidnapped into the syndicate, but he kind of went all in on it, and he's become more fanatical about the syndicate and the gods worship as time goes on. So seeing the cycles continue to be perpetuated over and over and over, that really got on his nerves, and he became more and more adamant about getting those things underway so that people could ascend, their gods could be released. Then you have KHX, not necessarily a character per se in the story as much as he is a plot point. He was kind of a tinkerer, did lots of repairs, lots of building, and was one of the primary architects, or actually was the primary architect initially. But he was found murdered as well by you, the player, Lady Love Dies, as you could miss him entirely in the game, in all honesty. There is a lot to deal with other characters and their motivations, but he is not necessarily a main character because you never really get to talk to him. You'll just end up seeing the chalk outline of his body and like how he fell and been crushed. So it's kind of a character. Not a whole lot of detail on him in particular. Then you have Deinonagate. Deinonagate, besides having a weird-ass name, he is tied directly to Carmelina Silence. That is primarily because he is also the son of another character that you do not meet, because he is long dead by the time you come out. Your character does know him, but long dead by that time. Aiz Kiwami, he is kind of a plot point in the story. what that does kind of come down to in that particular regard is like, oh, Carmelina had a thing with one of the members of the syndicate while not being on the syndicate, had a kid with him, but hid the kid away. That's where things get a little interesting, because by the time you meet Deinonagate, it's like, oh, okay, I know that shit's gone wacky, and it's going to continue to go wacky, and it also kind of really starts to point fingers as to where at least one of your mysteries should be solved. So then now you have Grand Marshal Akiko 14. Yes, the 14 is there for a reason. What reason? I don't fucking know. But with the Grand Marshal, she's kind of the leader of the Syndicate Islands military. So she is very militaristic, had a thing with Doom Jazz for quite a while, but also grew to love a lot of her, like a lot of just her marshals. She's simultaneously, or I'd say she's probably one of the most outwardly human of the characters, especially with the emotions, because once you kind of figure out that she has feelings for some of her marshals and like romantically, it becomes very apparent that it's like, oh, she definitely has some bones to pick with the Council of the Syndicate. And it's kind of nice because she is very standoffish, but even when she shows her vulnerability to you as Lady Love Dies, she does still kind of maintain that like militaristic kind of like, I need to be superior. I need to be superior in everything that I do. And it shows a lot into her psychology as a character. It's actually pretty nice. Then you have Lydia Daybreak and Sam Daybreak. I kind of love them, and I'm pairing them up because they are married, and their story is really kind of fun. With Lydia and Sam, they were both assassins, and they were going to, I think they were fighting as rival factions, or for rival factions, and then Sam, after Lydia almost killed him, kind of was like, you're beautiful, I love you, let's run away and we'll join the syndicate. And then they did. But Lydia, she's currently working as kind of like the island or the cycle, kind of how to say it, like the cab driver, instead of being a like just standard member of the syndicate performing lots of duties. Her main duty in all of it is to be the courier, the ferry woman. So between one cycle and the next, that's her primary duty, is take the population and the syndicate members one by one, or not the population really, I'll get to that, but get the syndicate members who live there, transport them to the next island that they're going to be producing, that the architect is currently working on. And then, of course, kind of whatever ferrying duties need to happen during the course of the current cycle, those are her duties. So she is the driver. And Sam, he's a bartender in the best way. He's like, he knows his customers. He goes to their tastes. Very much kind of the confidant. Only really kind of works with Lady Love Dies because they do have a long history of being friends for like years and years and years. But Lydia and Sam both also kind of want to get out of what they're doing. They kind of want to leave the syndicate, kind of live out the rest of their days as mortals because they just don't like what's going on and that it's continuing and continuing. So that's where they kind of split with the syndicate. And that actually brings me back to Grand Marshal Kiko because of her love of her marshals. She actually is forbidden from having relationships with the marshals because they are just citizens. And that's her split with the council. Then the last person, I believe I've gotten everybody else, is Yuri Knight. he's actually the most recent addition to the Syndicate, and he's been blessed by one of the gods. I believe it was Deep Blue. I'm not going to get into all the gods because that's a whole other thing, but with kind of like a prime physique. So he grew up from very stringy, kind of awkward, gangly boy, and then grew into this very physically well-built man that has like a perfect smile, but he also has like a big head about all of it, because he did climb the ranks relatively fast, because he did whatever he could, whenever he could, however he could to get ahead, because he came from basically being a citizen to being on the council. And that's your cast of characters. And one of the fun parts about this goes back to one of the things I mentioned early on, is the aesthetic of the game. There's no moving parts really in the game proper. You are kind of the sole moving object for the most part. There is animation throughout the world and stuff like that, but the sole moving object in the game is you. You do meet one other character. Let me see if I can remember his blasted name. I'll remember it at some point probably. But there is a demon. He has kind of a little bit of a dog face with like a crystal head, and they always have like little sensor bars or like sensor things all over him. And he's kind of a collectible. He's the first character you actually really meet in the game, but he's kind of serves to just kind of give little input here and there about the world that you live in at that point. Because what the Syndicate and the Council is, effectively it's a death cult. The citizens are kidnapped people from the real world, and where you live on those islands in those cycles is an artificial world that is created by the current Syndicate architect. And when it's time, because there's like they used to do it differently in the past, but now they have something called a reality warping engine or reality drive engine. And what that will do is that's what powers not only the world, but it will also power the transfer to the next world that it's created. But to power the next world and get that booted up, it requires a large blood sacrifice to the gods. And so that's technically what the citizens are for. They are not only there to be forced worship and workers for the cycle, but in the end, they're also the sacrifice that will trigger everything to kind of start up on the other world and allow a lot of the power to be available to transfer from one part or from one cycle to the next. So it's like the game is mature rated, because there is actually a really fair amount of blood, especially once you get up to that particular area where they perform the sacrifice, like just fountains and pools of blood everywhere. But the overall aesthetic, it's very kind of 80s. Everything is very 80s in aesthetic. The color palette, the color palette, the styles are kind of like I would call them hyper 80s, to where it's like, okay, they have that 80s feel to it and look to it because of the color palette and such, but it also kind of feels like just a step above that. So it's kind of like very hyper 80s aesthetic. So it kind of has almost like the whole game kind of has a very synthwave, shoegaze-esque feel, and the soundtrack is predominantly, I believe it actually almost exclusively lyricless. So even that kind of follows like a city pop Japanese style for the tone. It's really quite, it's a cozy game for it being a mystery or a murder mystery type of situation. It's surprisingly cozy, and it has its nice morbid details, but even then, it is still surprisingly cozy. because as you investigate, you get to see all the different aspects of the island. You'll get movement abilities and such to make your life a lot easier as well, but you'll see kind of how they built things up. It's a sight to behold. If anybody does end up kind of being like, oh, this sounds at least a little interesting, I say give it a shot. It's not going to be an expensive buy, and it's like there's a lot there for you to collect, because predominantly, outside of getting information and collecting that information, the game is technically a collectathon. There's all kinds of music tracks, all little skins for your little quote-unquote computer, which is basically your menu screen. There's upgrades that you need to purchase so you can get into different areas that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. Just little bottles of whiskey that you'll collect that kind of give you a flash forward, giving kind of some characters' current feelings on how the Syndicate works and the world that they live in from the Cycle Island, or from Paradise. I forgot what number it was, 25. I think perfect 25 or something like that. But from that current island, like, oh yeah, how the previous cycles and the previous paradises just weren't up to snuff and all that. And it's even thoughts on the council. So it's like you get these little insights here and there depending on what you're collecting, and they hide them in some of them are kind of a pain in the ass to get to, in all honesty. So it's kind of ingenious, and that is something that carried over into their more recent game, Promise Mascot Agency, which I won't really get into in this because I'm just going to sing the praises of Paradise Killer. But yeah, the overall aesthetic, it's wonderful. You will typically, or if you like the 80s aesthetic and you don't mind you being like the only moving part, because for the most part, the actual gameplay outside of collecting and moving around the environment is predominantly in kind of a visual novel style. You go up to kind of the static image of whichever character. You talk to them, you get information, you go investigate things like little hideaways, the murder scene. You have to figure out puzzles on how to get into different places, how these people's, or which kind of information will play off of other people so that you can get the most bang for your buck. And then ultimately, you end up having to decide who is guilty. And that's where the only other character I really didn't mention, the judge, comes into play. Because his whole role is literally just being a judge. He doesn't really have a whole lot of story or kind of background with the other characters outside of being the judge. And then if you present good information that can't be refuted, ta-da, you get to go in for the kill effectively. And it's just kind of done in a kind of I don't know the word for it, at least it's not coming to me at the moment, but kind of a really stylized way where it's not like super gory or anything. The only technical gore in the game is in the sacrificial chambers. But you do interact with some NPCs. They are static, however. They're just like little side quests to be able to get little additional blood gems, which are one of the collectible currencies in the game, or like little skins for your computer. And the foot baths are the most interesting of the collectibles because they do require the blood crystals, but the foot baths are what give you your movement abilities. And I will say that they are the most important thing to do, because the island, it isn't huge by any stretch, but anything you can to get higher, faster, and just more, so that you have more of a traversal skill in the game, is very good. Because if you are somebody who goes in and collects for like 100%, you will need it. You will absolutely need it, and it should be some of the first stuff you actually invest your blood gems into. After that, the next thing to invest your blood gems into is going to be like just information about the different characters, what types of secrets they might hold, what type of connections they might have to each other, what type of issues they might have with the syndicate. Those are all going to be things that you're going to want to spend your blood gems on. And you're going to be spending them with Crimson Acid because, as I said earlier, Crimson is the dealer of secrets, kind of the black market of the island for the most part. And it's a lot of information. And if you can kind of prove anyone is culpable for the most part. Practically anybody can be held liable for the murder of the council. And I think that that's kind of an interesting way that they went about the game. Because if anybody can be held culpable for the murder, it opens up a lot of possibility in how you interpret what went down, how it went down, and who truly is to blame, or if anybody even holds blame for it. So it's a very interesting game with, I would say that there's no real canon ending to this. Just kind of whatever you think is, whatever you think that went down is what went down, especially once you get the information in there. Like, I've played through the game a couple times. I've 100%ed the game a couple times. I've blamed Sam and Lydia. I've blamed Carmelina. I've blamed Witness to the End. Each one holds different, honestly, really pretty good reasons, and there's enough evidence that you can find where each of them would be culpable, including the other characters. So it's like, it does come down to a decision on your part. Do you blame them? Do you hold anything over them to be like, hey, I can't overlook this? It's a fun game, and it is kind of an exercise in just like it's a good thought experiment of a game. It's a lot of fun, and again, the music's fucking banging. It's really good. I highly recommend it. And I think typically you can get it for, I believe it's, you know what? Let me actually just look up the price for you, because then this way, let's see, Paradise Killer price. Let me see here. So apparently there is a physical copy for $40 that you can get at GameStop, but on PSN it looks like it's $20, and I would imagine that Xbox and Switch would probably be the same, including Steam. I'd be very surprised if it's going to be any more expensive than that as far as the digital download. And you can often find it on sale for about $5 or $10 depending on time of year. So it's a good game. You could sink hours into it, just kind of exploring and enjoying the world, reading the little blurbs about life, just general lore, backstory. There is a lot there to love in Paradise Killer. And that will bring me to a quick little spot on their more recent title, because it took a little while for the more recent one to come out, and that's Paradise Mascot Agency. It's like in a world where the basic blurb is, in a world where mascot characters like those, like Cheetan that you used to see on Twitter all the time, or even in little YouTube shorts and such. If characters like that from Japan were all actual living creatures, and they lived with humans, it's like, that's kind of the world. That's the world. But this kind of comes from a Yakuza side of things, where one guy kind of like, I don't necessarily say like he fucked up on a job or something, but he picked the life of his partner over the money delivery, even though there was probably some fishy stuff going on. Kind of did the whole losing the pinky to kind of make up for it, but due to the amount lost over the transaction, they said, it's like, hey, we know you're really not at fault here, but as a sign to both keep you safe and to give us more time to make this right in some capacity, we need you to quote unquote die and just kind of disappear off to this one area. Or I forgot what the town was called, but disappear off to this one little town. And in this town, we're going to have you effectively build up this mascot agency that we own. And what it'll do is you're going to send us money back as you progress. So it's kind of a management sim in a way, but with a lot of exploration and, of course, collection, because there's always going to be that when you have an open world to kind of deal with. And it is a lot of fun. It's incredibly silly because even though you chopped off your pinky to kind of make amends for fucking up the Yakuza job, the character that you're paired with right out the gate is a sentient pinky mascot. So the irony is not lost. But it's like this studio, what was it? Kaizen Gameworks. They are terribly creative, and it's a lot of fun. They do some interesting stuff, and they have some great writers on the team. It's good stuff. Good stuff. I don't really have anything else for you this week. This is going to be a real short episode, mostly because, again, all the boys are gone. I've been busy. I didn't have time to really kind of come up with a lot of a script or anything like that, so just kind of going off the top of my head here. So forgive me for that. It's going to be kind of a different sort of episode. Maybe I'll record another one shortly and you'll get a bonus episode. Who knows? I know my time will dictate that. But I think next time I'm going to try to hold myself to being a giant nerd, or even more of a giant nerd than I was this week, talking about a single video game for 30 minutes without a script. And I think I'm going to talk about Magic the Gathering a little bit next week, and maybe a couple other topics. I don't know. We'll see. Especially because everybody's going to be busy. It's like they exploded, aka are working for the local fair, because that is currently going on. But besides that, I'm gonna go back to my little cave. Going to get ready for the rest of my day, and I'm gonna go to work tonight and probably cry about it a little bit because it's work. It's like I could be doing so many other things, like drugs. That'd be nice. But this has been the Shenanigoons podcast for this week. Again, forgive me for the short one. It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. Music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod of incompetech.com. And if you like what we do here, like, subscribe, share, talk about us to other people. Write our names on your desks at school or at work. Especially with the classic S that every teenager seemed to be able to do. And get fucked.